Welcome everyone. I'm Laura Boyles. I serve on the Board of Directors for Childcare Resources, and today I'm here representing the Marketing Committee and also to introduce our Childcare Resources Director, or Executive Director, Joan Wright. Joan is going to lead the program and introduce our guest, but we wanted to make sure that the board was represented and thanked everyone for participating. Joan?
Great. Thank you, Laura, and good afternoon to all of you. We're glad to have you, and we hope some other folks will join us along the way. Today, we are sharing information about Alabama Quality Stars. This is our state's quality rating and improvement system, often referred to as QRIS. And we do have a guest from the Alabama Department of Early Childhood Education who now manages Alabama's Quality Stars program. She will be joining us around 12:30 as she is currently in a virtual training session about the changes to QRIS. So I'm going to sort of share some information with you, set the stage for Kellie, give you a little bit of historical background around QRIS and Alabama's efforts on this front. So again, thank you for making time to join us this afternoon. This event is being recorded, so we will create a shortened version of this and put it on our website where it can be referred to for going forward. So let me tell you a little bit about QRIS. Again, that is a quality rating and improvement system. And many of you are probably familiar with star ratings for organizations and businesses like hotels, restaurants, even travel sites, things like that. And so consumers are very accustomed to ratings, and we generally think of them as stars, you know, a 4-star hotel or a 5-star restaurant. Many times, you know, we're purchasing things online now, and you can even do a filter for star ratings, and you can look at which products have the higher star ratings. And so we're generally accustomed to recognizing that the more stars something has, you would expect a better quality product. And that's kind of the same thing we're applying here to childcare. So QRIS is not new. The updates that we're going through here in Alabama are new, but QRIS has been around for many years. And Childcare Resources, through participation from me and Myra Shaw, were very much a part of the foundation for QRIS in Alabama. We, along with many others across the state in childcare, in higher education, various childcare providers, other agencies like Childcare Resources that support the efforts of childcare across the state. Many years ago, we would travel down to Montgomery to DHR, and we would be in meetings on a regular basis to talk about how is QRIS going to look in Alabama. And we decided to call it Alabama Quality Stars. And it took a couple of 3 years to really get the whole process sort of laid out. And since then, it's gone through a couple of different reiterations. It's been updated and revised a couple of times as it's continued to evolve and roll out. And so now we're in the newest version of QRIS for Alabama. It maintains the name Alabama Quality Stars, is the official name of our QRIS program here in Alabama. Pretty standard, straightforward, kind of tells you what it is. It's about Alabama, it's about quality, and it's about stars. And we have a 5-star rating system. The maximum number of stars a program could achieve is 5. So it's a measure of quality. And there's different areas that are evaluated in childcare to determine which star rating is appropriate. And the idea is behind QRIS is that, again, just like us as consumers in the public sector, childcare consumers need a way to understand what they should expect from a childcare provider in terms of quality. So in Alabama, of course, we have licensing through Alabama Department of Human Resources, DHR. And some people will say, well, that's a way to start with evaluating quality, as if a program meets licensing standards. And prior to the recent update that just took effect September 13th, DHR's licensing standards were called minimum. Minimum was actually in the name of our state's licensing standards. And many people felt that that kind of created a little bit of a maybe misunderstanding or an inappropriate conception of what childcare in Alabama is like. So when DHR had the licensing standards revised recently, they did change the name to Performance and Regulation Standards. They intentionally removed the word minimum, because they want people to recognize that licensing standards are indeed a level of quality, a way to evaluate quality, to provide oversight, inspection, expectations in terms of safety, health, services for children, the way those services are delivered to children and families across Alabama. Alabama does still have an option, however, for child care providers to opt out of these standards. And that is through a law that's been on the books since actually as long as Childcare Resources has been around, since the early 1980s, and that remains on the books now. However, a few years ago, Childcare Resources and many others across the state joined Voices for Alabama's Children to try to change some of that, try to improve that. And through the Child Care Safety Act, which was passed by the Alabama legislature, I believe in 2017 and took effect in August of 2018, the exemption from licensing standards was strengthened. It was also coincided with some new federal regulations that were saying if a child is going to have their child care paid through federal dollars through the Child Care Subsidy Program, then that facility needed to meet certain criteria to be able to receive those federal dollars. And those were around background checks, health and safety training, and regular inspections. So again, through the Child Care Safety Act, we were able to improve some of that in Alabama. And we did see several child care providers across the state go ahead and become licensed so that they could continue to serve children that their care was being subsidized through those federal dollars called Child Care Development Fund or Child Development Block Grant Funds, CCDF, or also called CDBG funds, and to meet those requirements. And DHR made changes in their processes to be able to meet those requirements through the Child Care Safety Act and the new federal regulations. We also saw many child care providers across the state decide to do one of two things: either close their program completely and just say they didn't want to have to deal with any of that, or they said because of their faith-based exemption, which is the only exemption we have is faith-based, or you are part of a school system or a university, college or university setting, which already has oversight by another state department, State Department of Education, excuse me, or the university system, they can be exempt from licensing too, because there's already a state agency providing oversight for them. Those who claim a religious exemption, some of them decide to just stop serving children that would be on subsidized care completely. So they wouldn't have to address the new federal requirements or the Child Care Safety Act requirements. So that we did see an impact from those efforts all across the state. QRIS, however, is a little different than all of that. QRIS is a voluntary program, and many states have had various versions of their own QRIS system in place for a number of years, and they all operate a little different. There's no set mode, if you will, that QRIS in Alabama needs to be the same as in Mississippi, Louisiana, Virginia, Washington. Every state who has a QRIS develops it in their own way. There's certain general criteria and general expectations of a QRIS system. However, each one is built based on the input from their own local communities, local state entities, and such like that. And that's again how Alabama's has been developed and continues to evolve. Some questions you may be wondering is, well, what's changing about Alabama's QRIS and why is it changing? Well, again, the federal government who really pushes QRIS. They don't fund it, however, but they do encourage it. They say that your QRIS should have a continuous improvement process. In other words, you shouldn't just set your QRIS and then say, okay, well, that's ours and that's how it's going to be. It should be looked at, it should be evaluated. It may go through changes and evolution, and certainly that has happened here in Alabama. And so where we are right now is we're just at the latest phase of our continuous improvement for QRIS in Alabama. You may be wondering to yourself, well, who's in charge of Alabama Quality Stars? It's called Alabama Quality Stars, but who's in charge of it? Well, it does reside with the Alabama Department of Human Resources. They are our state's child care licensing entity, and they are the recipient of federal funds, which can be used to support QRIS systems. So they are still the in charge, if you will, of QRIS. However, over the years, they have looked at ways to implement QRIS in Alabama, and they've had a couple of different versions of that. For a while, they were managing it themselves with their own staff. Then they decided to contract it out to an outside entity. And now they've decided to contract it out to another entity through an interagency agreement with another state department. So that is now the Alabama Department of Early Childhood Education. So in that transition, and keeping in mind that QRIS itself should go through a continuous improvement process, when Alabama Department of Early Childhood Education was awarded the vendor agreement to now implement QRIS in Alabama, they used this as an opportunity to say, well, let's look at this. Let's evaluate where QRIS is in Alabama, where it's been, how it's making an impact, what the participation is, and what can we do with it now that we're overseeing it, we're implementing it for the Department of Human Resources. So together with DHR, with many folks who were participating on an advisory council, they evaluated QRIS as its current format, and they looked at ways to strengthen it. They looked at other models across the country. They considered feedback from current and non-participating child care programs, both from home providers as well as center-based providers. And they considered all of that and considered norm referenced research-based evaluation tools. They heard input from Head Start programs across Alabama, and they said, what do we want QRIS to be now in Alabama? Here are some things that haven't changed. It's still called Alabama Quality Stars. It is still a 5-star rating system. There are still monetary incentives to participate in QRIS for child care providers. And it is still available to both home providers as well as center-based providers who are licensed. That has always been the minimal standard for our QRIS in Alabama, is that participating programs have to be licensed to join QRIS. It remains voluntary. It is still a voluntary participatory process for programs that want to be a part of QRIS and submit themselves to the evaluation process and the star level rating process. So those are some things that have stayed the same. So what are some things that are different? Some things that are different is, one, Alabama Early Childhood Education is now the implementer, the partner with DHR for Alabama Quality Stars. Changes that have been made to the QRIS have been approved by DHR. Nothing that Alabama Early Childhood Development, Childhood Education Department has done has not been approved by DHR. DHR has been in the process the whole time. They are well aware of the evaluation, the feedback, the input, and the recommendations. And before, we like to call them DECE, Department of Early Childhood Education, made any changes, all those had to be approved by DHR first. So that's something that's different. What's also different is child care providers across the state did receive communication from DHR a few months ago that said, here's some things we're changing about QRIS. And the first change they made was that if you are a licensed program in the state of Alabama, whether it's a home program or a center-based program, you are automatically considered a Star 1 rated program. You only have to say that, yes, you want to accept the Star 1 rating and participate in QRIS, and then you receive a monetary incentive for being a Star 1 rated program. If you did not want to be a part of that and you did not want the monetary incentives that were provided for being a Star 1, you did have the option to opt out. Child care providers across the state were given the option to opt out of being a Star 1 rated program and also therefore opt out of any monetary incentives that are tied to it. At this point, you may be asking yourself, hey, what are the monetary incentives? You may not have known that there are monetary incentives tied to QRIS. Again, this is a standard incentive across the country for programs to participate in QRIS. And in Alabama, we have some new options now. Previously, the only option for a monetary incentive was tied to children on subsidy. So if you were serving children on subsidy and you were a Star 1 rated program, your subsidy amount was the standard subsidy amount, what it is for everyone across the state. I think it was once you became a Star 3 or higher rated program, your child care subsidy payment had a slight increase based on your star rating. I believe that started at Star level 3. And again, there's a total of 5. You can be as high as 5. Most programs that were participating in QRIS, which again was very low participation across the state previously, most of them were either a 2 or a 3-star rated program. We had very, very few 4 or 5-star rated programs. And before now, most of those were center-based programs. There was only a small number of home-based programs, and the home-based program rolled out a little slower than the center-based because they had some nuances that were a little different that were only applicable to home providers. So that rollout was a little different early on in Alabama's development of QRIS. So that was one incentive for participation in QRIS. Now, partly due to the federal government providing what we often refer to as COVID funds or COVID relief funds, have come in a couple of different versions. You may be familiar with the CARES Act. That was an initial phase of COVID relief funds that came into communities, individuals, municipalities, and the like, state agencies. And then more recently, we've had what people call the ARPA funds, American Rescue Plan Act funds. And those have also been awarded to a variety of entities, including state agencies like DHR. And so what they have done is they've looked at QRIS and said, what can we do to strengthen QRIS? What can we do to keep the rigor of the standards such that it is indicative of quality? However, we want to ensure broad participation from child care programs across Alabama. What can we do? We have now this influx of additional financial resources to sort of rework this, to re-incentivize it. So now, DHR offers a monetary incentive on top of the subsidy increase. So you are programs that participate, even at the Star 1 level now, are eligible for annual payments of a certain amount based on the license capacity of the child care program. I don't have those exact figures in front of me. You can check with DHR for what those amounts and criteria are. However, they are pretty incentivizing to get that at your annual license renewal time. Your program will receive, as long as it maintains its star rating, will receive a one-time lump sum payment for that year at your license renewal time. And again, the idea is that quality costs money. And if you're going to have a quality program, you need the resources to support a quality program in terms of teachers, in terms of the criteria for teachers, your classroom materials, resources that are brought to bear to really deliver a high quality program. So those are some things that are different now. The application process is going to be a little different. And I'm going to let Kellie speak to this here shortly. She'll be joining us in just a few minutes, and she can tell you a little bit more about that. The new process is coming up here shortly after the first of the new year. So she can talk more about that. Keep in mind that this is a period of transition. DHR has taken the advantage of the opportunity for continuous quality improvement of a quality improvement rating system to say, how can we make it better for Alabama? Better for Alabama providers, better for Alabama businesses, and better for Alabama families, and most importantly, children. The children are at the center of all this work, because we know that children who are given a quality early learning setting and a nurturing quality early learning environment and positive nurturing interactions with caregivers, they are more likely to enter school ready to succeed and will stay in school and generally have better academic and lifelong outcomes due to the quality early learning that happens in those critical years that only happen in early childhood development. And many of you who work in this field already know that, and it's perhaps the reason why you're involved, because you want to be a part of that positive trajectory for young children who are just waiting to be molded and shaped to becoming the wonderful people that we all want them to be, that we have become ourselves. We were all, believe it or not, some of us longer ago than others. We won't talk about any of that on this call. We too had a start early in our life that, believe it or not, did set the stage for where we are right now today in our life, in our professional career, in our personal life. If you look back at your early childhood experiences, that was where that foundation was being laid to where you are today. So I just wanted to take some time while we have this opportunity together, and Kellie will be joining us shortly, to give you just some insights into what is QRIS, how has it evolved here in Alabama, and what sort of is happening now. What are some new things we can learn? The Alabama Department of Early Childhood Education has offered several learning opportunities as they continue to roll out this revised and revamped QRIS for Alabama. And they have a wealth of information on their website. I'm just going to quickly screen share. Their website, fortunately, is very simple to remember, and this is their same website that they have been using for a number of years now. It's called Alabama Quality Stars, all one word, alabamaqualitystars.org. And what I'm going to quickly show you when my computer quits spinning here is their frequently asked questions section of their website, often called FAQ, that has a lot of the questions I shared with you today addressed. So I'm hoping you all can see this now. Can someone give me a verbal feedback as to whether or not you can see the Alabama Quality Stars website, please?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. So here it is, FAQ. And they are continuously updating this. In fact, I'll show you from the printed version that I had to prepare for today's meeting. They've added several more bits of information. So there's now information about the PDR, called the Professional Development Registry. There's some information about. I cannot see it. Oh, you cannot see it? Okay, I'm not sure what to do about that. Are others able to see it?
Yes, I can still see it, Joan.
Okay, great. If you're not able to see it, again, I'll just encourage you to go to alabamaqualitystars.org and select their FAQ across their top menu option. And that's just one place. Okay, great. That's just one place where you can get information. I shared with you about how this works between DHR and Department of Early Childhood Education. What does it mean to be a Star 1 rated program? What are some incentives that are offered? How do I go forward to apply for a higher level star rating, which, as you may imagine, the higher star rated you are, the more monetary incentive exists. So it's called a tiered reimbursement, again, which is a standard practice across the country for many QRIS programs. They offer what's called a tiered reimbursement or tiered incentive program, which means the higher star rated you are, the higher your monetary incentive is. And DHR is doing the same for that. So there's just lots of great information here on this website that you can go through. And again, they are updating this on a regular basis. Again, I can already see updates from something that was printed off from this site at least a few weeks ago to now they've updated more information. And as you can see, the contact person is Kellie Holcomb, who is literally going to be joining us at any moment now. She is the QRIS for the Department of Early Childhood Education. So she is really your best source of information about QRIS. And I have here her contact information. Her email is just a generic email address that goes directly to her, and her phone number, and then of course a mailing address if you decide to reach out to her that way. So that is a great source of information to have at your fingertips, and again, to revisit from time to time to see what updates exist there. I'm going to stop screen sharing now. And I'm just going to pause while we anticipate Kellie joining us any moment. Who has a question or a comment? If you'll just raise your hand or come off mute and let us know your question, please. Okay, I'll give you a quiz then. Raise your hand if you know the answer to this question. Who is in charge of Alabama's quality rating system? Who's in charge? Come on, people. Nobody's going to raise their hand. I'll give you a hint. You can answer it with just 3 alphabet letters. 3 of the 26 alphabet letters, and you can have your answer. Anyone? Are you all still there? Aha! Thank you, Caitlin. Oh, hi, Brittany. Glad to see you here. Caitlin put her answer in the chat. And yes, DHR is still in charge. Alabama Department of Early Childhood Education is the implementer. And as I speak those words, look who is here. It's Kellie. Hello, Kellie. Good afternoon. We know You've been very, very busy today, already answering a lot of questions, providing a lot of information about QRIS. So we're glad you could adjust and take time to be with our group today. We have a good number of our staff at Childcare Resources on the call, as well as some other childcare providers on the call. So what I have done, Kellie, in advance of you joining us, I've just sort of shared sort of a historical perspective of what has been the journey of QRIS in Alabama. And we shared the FAQ page from your website and talked a lot about the information that's there. So at this point, I think it would be helpful. You're welcome to introduce yourself and then just sort of tell us a little bit about what is the process now? How can programs who want to be a part of QRIS, what are their next steps at this phase? Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you all for having me, and it is lovely to get to be with you today. It has been a whirlwind of a morning already for me, so appreciate your understanding in that. So as Joan mentioned, I'm Kellie Holcomb. I am the Ed Admin for the QRIS project, working with the Department of Early Childhood Education. QRIS, of course, is a partnership between DECE and the Department of Human Resources. So it has been a whirlwind of a journey, of course. QRIS in this state has been. And we've had quite a whirlwind of a process, even just within this sort of new revamped version of QRIS. So we did just finish in October a pilot program with our new proposed star rating criteria and assessment process, and we are looking back over the data and the information that was provided as a result of that. So decisions are being made currently about exactly how this full rollout is going to happen. So with that in mind, of course, things are always subject to change. There are a lot of people involved in, making decisions and trying to chart the best course for this project. But our hope is that we are currently working on orientation materials and training and guidance to be able to roll this full program out and open it to all child care providers in the state in January of next year. So in December, our plans are to have a registration and orientation process that will be open and available for providers then, right? So next month is really when, any action can be taken. So at this point, all of the guidance that we currently have about our star rating criteria is available for review on our website, right? You've seen those FAQs. So we do have those resources available. We are having live Q&A sessions with some of our specialists that are sharing probably a lot of the same kind of information that you all have shared or that you may have questions about today. So that's always an option to join one of those. And then, the next action point is really going to be in December. There will be the option and the availability for programs and providers to register for QRIS and then to do an orientation and begin looking at the options that we have available for enhancement or assessment. Any kind of questions that you all have that might be things that would be most helpful for you to know?
Sure. One question maybe on some people's minds, is there a fee to participate in QRIS, Kellie?
That is an excellent question. There is no fee associated whatsoever. In fact, should you choose the enhancement program option, that is going to include 6 months of technical assistance, and you would also receive some funding to be able to develop the things that might be necessary in your program, whether that's professional development or some resources or materials. So there is actually really only the opportunity to gain funds by participating in QRIS. And that is also true with the incentives. So that is something that DHR has done and made a real effort to emphasize QRIS in the state, that we are extremely grateful for and have seen a lot of interest as a result of. So the incentives that are tied to QRIS now, for one, I think it's fabulous just to note that at a star level 1, which is that you meet licensing requirements, there are incentives associated with that. That is monitored by DHR, and no further action is required of programs at that point. I know that's one thing that I've heard some anxiety from programs and providers about. Just, okay, do I have to participate? Like, what do I have to do? If you are licensed and you've gone through that, you've not opted out of QRIS, right? You having your license equates you with being star level 1. You receive an incentive payment for that. There's no further action that you have to take. Of course, we hope that you will want to pursue a higher star rating. But as far as what's required or when that sort of urgency and action is demanded, there's no further step that's required. If programs would like to pursue those higher star ratings, level 2 through 5, that is what my team of specialists is responsible for assessing and evaluating. and enhancing, offering that coaching.
Great, Kelly. So we talked a little bit about the monetary incentives for participation in QRIS, and I did share with them that it starts at STAR level 1, which means you're a licensed program. You had to opt out. You had to actually say, no, I don't want it, to tell DHR you don't want to be a part of their monetary incentives for that initial STAR rating level. Where is there information, or is there a place where people go to see what are the monetary incentives for the various license capacity sizes and STAR rating size? Where can people find that information?
Absolutely. So on our website, let me see if I can pull this up. And am I able to share with my screen?
Yes, on Teams, you just click the little square box with the up arrow. It does sometimes take a second to get to everyone's screen, but you should be able to do that. And we can see it now, yes.
All right. So from our homepage on alabamaqualitystars.org, you click on DHR payment schedules. That takes you right to all of the information about that bonus incentive schedule. So we have the schedule for centers and then for homes.
For those who may not be on a screen at the moment, let's just look at that for a second, Kelly. And if it's okay with you, I'm just going to sort of read some of this just to kind of put this incentive out there. So if you are just a licensed program, a child care center licensed program, which is STAR 1, and your license capacity is up to 50 children, you can receive a one-time, this is an annual payment, right? As long as you maintain your STAR rating, which in this case is licensing standards, it's a one-time annual payment of $9,000 at your annual license renewal time. For a child care home, I think that says $2,200. Is that what it says there? For a child care home?
For a family child care?
Yes, family child care home. That's up to six children. That's $2,200, right? For just being a STAR 1. So, you know, it's something to think about as you go up the STAR ratings, and if your capacity is higher, then that monetary incentive increases. And tell us this too, please, Kelly, if you would. I had shared with them that child care subsidy payments also are tied to a STAR rating. Is that still the same? And at what STAR rating level does that start?
So the subsidy reimbursement schedule is posted on that page as well. And so you can see here what that chart is for, and it starts at that STAR 1 level as well.
So again, I'm going to do my best to read a little bit of this. She enlarged it a little for us with weak eyes, and small screens can see it better.
I can do it even more. That's helpful.
Again, the child care subsidy reimbursement rate does vary based on the region and the state, because we know that different parts of the state have different market rate amounts. So I'm just looking at the Birmingham. Again, those of you that can see the screen, you can see this with me. In Birmingham, the base rate for an infant or toddler at a center is $150. At the STAR level 1, you actually get $153 per child, infant, toddler age at a Birmingham based, and that doesn't mean city of Birmingham, that's like Central Alabama, the service area of Childcare Resources. Central Alabama region of, you know, the Birmingham region, you get $3 extra more per child per month for just being a STAR level 1, for just doing what you're already doing, being a licensed program. So again, you can see that amount increases with the STAR ratings. Of course, the older the child, the lower those rates are, because generally we consider care for infants and toddlers to be the most expensive care. And as you can see here on this chart, Central Alabama, the Birmingham region is the most expensive region of child care. So they're getting the highest reimbursement rates here in Birmingham area. And again, you can see these for center-based care, group family child care, and home family child care. So group is a maximum number of 12 children, family is a maximum number of 6, and then centers, it's all based on the size of the center, what their license capacity is. So that's another incentive to think about for star rating. So what other questions do we have for Kellie? And while I'm still speaking, as you saw in the chat, we would like to get a screen capture of everyone who would be comfortable being on camera, to give us a moment to get a screen capture before we end today's meeting. What other questions do we have for Kellie? Or Kellie, do you have any other information you want to share with us?
Yeah, I would love to answer any questions that you all may have, and just encourage you. And even just, I did think mentioning those incentives, it made me think, you read off for star level 1 for centers with up to 50 children, right? That is $9,000 now. And the payment that folks just received, right? So from last year's incentive schedule was $800. So just the emphasis and the increase that compares just how incredible those incentives are now, and how much emphasis DHR has really put behind this effort to recognize and to improve quality of child cares in the state is really impressive, I think.
Yeah, that's amazing. I can't even calculate what a percentage of an increase that is, to go from $800 to $9,000. That's like, what is it, like a 10,000% improvement or something like that? It's pretty significant.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, we're very grateful, and we know, those of us that have been in this work for a long time, we know childcare deserves these kinds of incentives in order to offer quality care to children and families. And it helps you with your staff. If you're receiving more money, then hopefully that translates to a little bit higher income for staff, a little bit higher wage you can pay childcare staff, especially if you know you're going to get this on a regular, recurring basis. You can plan for that. You can budget for it. So this is truly, truly exciting. So any other questions or feedback for Kellie before we get a screen capture shot?
And I will just say that is really the intention with those incentives as well, is, to recognize the quality that does exist in these child cares, and also to give providers an opportunity to really reinvest in their quality, to give you something that you can count on so that we can, help with pay parity, or just, some of those other efforts of childcare that we know are really expensive, and it's hard to fund all of those measures of quality. Mm-hmm. And so that's the intention behind that, to be able to reinvest.
Great. We do have a question from our audience. Miss Sandra, if you would go ahead and unmute yourself and share your question.
Okay, I wanted to know, how soon can I start progressing towards the STAR 2?
That's a great question. So our intention is really for you to apply for assessment. So that's one important distinction. If you had any kind of experience with the program as it was previously, you had to apply for a specific star rating. Our intention now is for you to be able to just apply to be assessed, right? So whatever level of quality, whatever kind of documentation and evidence that you have existing within your program, will be able to assess that at any level. And there is really no restriction on when you'll be able to do that. As soon as that, registration and enrollment process opens, which again, we hope for that to be in December, that will be wide open to you all to be able to jump right in, apply for assessment, and, hopefully get up there early on that wait list so that can happen pretty quickly. We plan for those assessments to actually begin in January.
Okay, thank you.
I love your ambition, Miss Sandra. Go for it, lady. That's right. Get out there and take advantage of them while they're geared up and ready to go.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We hope we'll be seeing you soon.
Other questions or comments before we close? Well, Laura, I'll turn it over to you for some closing remarks and maybe just some reminders about this event that we make available on a variety of topics. Laura Boyles is our board member and chairwoman, if you will, of our Marketing and Communications Committee. So we call it Coffee with Ed. I'm Ed, the executive director, not the talking horse. And the, kind of point person for these things. So we appreciate all of you being here today and taking time, and I'll just turn it over to Laura to close us out.
Yes, thank you, Kelly, and thank you, Joan. Y'all both did a great job. Definitely some informative information, and anxious to see some of these stars awarded, especially in Central Alabama. But thanks for participating in this program. It's one that we we'll plan to continue to grow and interact with different speakers and guests and just keep everyone up to date on what's going on in the childcare world. So thank you everyone for being here today, and we look forward to having coffee with you soon.